already or not?
I don't think they are.
Okay, because there was a chance that they were going to get it this morning, but I
Oh,
don't.
really? Have you heard anything, Debbie? Debbie hasn't heard anything.
Okay.
It says we have 5
Do we have 5 now?
No, we have 5 non-video participants, but I can't until you. click the
I have those as Dale and Orca and Jackie.
Oh, Jackie's listening.
Wait, so I've got Cynthia, Joan, Jim, Randy.
Still only have,
We've got 4.
still only have 4.
Yeah.
So we'll just wait another minute or two and see if anything changes.
Okay.
And then otherwise we can go with the updates until we might get a quorum. There's nothing we have to act on today. So
Correct.
okay.
Correct. We've got the, all we have is.
You know, guys-
Don't we have 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Jackie, Randy, you, me,
Jackie's
Joe.
staff.
Jackie's staff.
Jackie's staff.
Oh, okay. What
And
about,
Dale, are you a fire commissioner or chief?
Fire commissioner.
Okay, you're just here to. Are you here to public comment or just to listen on that?
Only here to observe, take information back on the agenda item you have, I believe, on outdoor burning. Take that back to the fire commissioners.
Okay, great.
Jill
What fire
has
district
arrived.
are you from?
I think we have 5 now. Is Randy still on?
I'm from Grace Harbor.
Hi, Jill.
Yeah.
Good to see you. You
Yes, Randy's
you
still
just
on.
made a quorum, so we can get started.
Sorry, I had to go back and find the Zoom link because the Zoom link didn't transfer over to my calendar. It's like,
We've got 5 now. We have 5. We're good.
Got it. Okay. And I have an iPhone coming in. I want to just see. If,
That's Greg. I thought I saw Greg.
oh, there's Greg. Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Sorry I was late.
Hi, this is Bill.
And Bill, look at that.
I'm the iPhone character.
Now we have a super quorum. So maybe Nick can rename Bill if you don't mind, so I can. There we go. Awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the February 10th meeting of the Olympic Region Clean Air Agency. Want to go ahead and do a quick round of introductions. So we'll go ahead and go through the board first. So I'm Jim Cooper from the City of Olympia. Cynthia?
I'm Cynthia Pratt from Lacey.
Joan?
Joan Cathy from Tumwater.
Randy?
Randy Netherland, Mason County.
Jill?
Jill Warney, Grace Harbor County.
Greg?
Greg Brotherton, Jefferson County.
Bill?
Bill Peach, Cologne County.
Great. And Commissioner Mejia from Thurston County had an executive session come up this morning, so she'll get on once they complete that, and we can welcome her at that time. Anyone else from the board that I missed? Okay, Fran, can you walk us through staff?
Happy to. So Fran McNair, Executive Director. Robert?
Robert, excuse me, Robert Moody, Compliance Manager.
Odell? You're on mute, Odell.
Odell Hadley from the Senior Air Monitoring Specialist, and I'm going to have some more coffee.
Debbie?
Debbie Moody, Office Manager.
Unarmed office manager. Dan?
Dan Nelson, Public Information Officer.
And Lynn?
Lynn Harding, Administrative Services Manager.
And Mark Gooden. Where's Mark? There's Mark.
Right here, Mark Gooden. I'm the engineer for the agency.
And we have our 2 attorneys, Jeff Myers
Jeff Myers, Law Lyman.
and Mike Throgmorton.
Mike Throgmorton.
I think that's it for us.
Great. And Dale, being the one person from the public, if you'd like to introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Certainly. Dale Putnam, Fire District 9, representing the Thurston County Fire Commissioners Association, here for listening to it and informational purposes in regards to your new business item on outdoor burning discussion. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Dale. Okay, so I'm open to a motion to approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, any amendments or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. So that takes us to a chair's report, and the item of business today is that according to our bylaws, in February of each year, I'm supposed to, as your chair, appoint a finance committee. And so the finance committee has been, of the members who are here, myself and with Cynthia Pratt chairing the committee, and Randy Netherland. And I'm inclined to just appoint that group. We could have 4. We can't go to 5 because we can't have a quorum. So if A, Cynthia and Randy, are you willing to serve? And B, is anyone else interested?
Yes, if you need me, this is Randy. I will continue. If not, I would do something else.
Okay. Cynthia?
I'm good. Yes.
Okay. Is anybody else feeling the itch to dig in on the budget and finances for Orca?
Such a strong group already. I think I would only weaken it.
Well, we used to keep it pretty tight to, close to Thurston County just because of travel, but now we all do it on Zoom. So if you want to join, give a shout out. It's also a good way to learn if you're really interested. So I'll just give another second and see if there's any other volunteers. Okay.
Hi, this is Bill Peach.
Hi, Bill.
Yeah, I've got an MBA. Happy to support the finance committee as an alternate.
Okay, that sounds good. Now we have a name if one of us can't make it, and we can have an extra committee member. So I'm fine with that. Fran and Debbie, are you okay juggling it that way?
I didn't hear what you said.
So Bill volunteered to do it as an alternate.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay, so we'll appoint the committee with Cynthia Pratt as the chair, myself and Randy Netherland as committee members, and Bill Peach as an alternate to try and make sure we always have 3.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Appreciate that. That takes us to public comment, and I'll just see, Dale, did you have any comments, or are you just here to listen? Oh, sorry, Cynthia, go ahead.
Were you going to appoint a personnel committee or not?
Oh, yeah, so I'm just checking in on personnel committee. So thank you, Cynthia. So we typically do the personnel committee every other year to do the performance evaluation of our CEO. We did that last year with Fran. She had an excellent performance review. There was a discussion about her salary, but with the uncertainty of COVID, we didn't do anything with her salary beyond the normal COLAs that the staff received. And for the context, for the new members, her salary is a fair bit behind the average of the Clean Air Agency directors in our state. And so what I want to propose is, rather than creating a personnel committee, that we have an executive session to talk about Fran's performance in a timely month between now and the time the budget comes out in May. And so if that's okay with the board, we'll work to have that scheduled so we can talk about Fran's performance just as a group and see if there's any conversation moving forward. Can I get a thumbs up if that works for everyone?
Yeah.
It's good.
Okay. That way we don't have to do a committee. Okay. Thanks, Cynthia. I appreciate you bringing me back. I was asking Dale, do you have public comment or not?
Thank you for the opportunity, but no comment.
Okay, wonderful. So that will take us to our consent agenda. Assuming everyone's looked at it, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, or polls? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So that takes us to our item of new business, outdoor burning discussion. So Fran, who am I turning this over to?
So Robert and Dan are actually going to do the presenting. I think Dan's got, are you going to take over the screen, Dan? You're on mute.
I can,
I'll share the screen here in a minute.
I'll go ahead and kind of kick it off here, that give you a quick background as to how we are, where we're at in outdoor burning here. The changes in Thurston County started, well, statewide started with changes to the revised Code of Washington in 1992. Orca amended its regulation in 1993 to ban outdoor burning in Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater specifically. In 2000, we modified what we call the maintenance plan. Don't worry about the detail there. But our burn restrictions for Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater were actually included in the maintenance plan, which means simply that it's federally enforceable. 2006, we rewrote our outdoor burn regulation, which clarified the ban on outdoor burning within the city limits. And in 2012, that's actually when the federal statutes were added into the federal stuff. So kind of a blind statement there, but so what Dan is showing you, and Dan, I don't know if you want to go ahead and launch into this a little bit, explain what you did, how we got where we're at here.
Yeah. So the map you should be seeing now shows Thurston County, and I can zoom out. What we did was basically plot on the map, on a Google map, all of the complaints we received. And we did this for 1 year period, October through October, October 19 through 20. We also did the previous 2 years in those same cycles, and then plotted out all of the notices of violation that compliance generated. So not all of the complaint response, but all of the complaints that resulted in notices of violation that went to completion. So you can see the little red police officer buttons are the NOVs, and the telephones are the complaints we received. And this is for the year October 2019 through October 2020. So you can see most of the complaints, the outdoor burning, and these are all outdoor burning complaints, were generated primarily within the cities and urban growth areas where burning is either prohibited completely or restricted to recreational fires in the UGAs. No residential yard waste burning allowed in any of those shaded areas. And so again, you can see that the concentration is really city-centric, both in terms of the NOVs and in the complaints we're receiving. And it's worth noting, and a pat on the back to Robert's team, you can see, for instance, down in East Olympia, a cluster of complaints being called in. There was an NOV cited in the center of those complaints, and I don't know if I can pull up details. So that was violation in June, and you can see some of these are the same time period. June is when they were complaining. So Orca did respond and got a good compliance effort out in that problematic area.
I will add that you do find clusters like that, and sometimes it means that there's a lot of problems, and sometimes it means you have very active complainants. This one's actually the second version of that, caused by that.
And so you can see I turned down the complaints for the previous 2 years, and you can see different colors of those green buttons. Those are just the different years, but you can see it's pretty widespread, but still throughout the past 3 years, very much city-centric. Oops. If you went too far, it just becomes.
The other thing that we found was, we focus, and then, the recidivism in that area from year to year tends to be reduced based upon getting out and providing public education, also notices of violation. So, we're hoping that it cuts down on repeat offenders by actually, trying to get to it. And so you can see that from the clusters and the different colors.
And there I turned on all of the NOVs for the previous years too, in different colors of red, so you can see where those have occurred. And the other issue in terms of reaction. So we have good compliance. We also have good education, both with Robert's team and I hope with me. We get out and communicate and try to change behavior through education and information as much as possible. So again, if we're in a cluster, I think there is up in this area around Union Mill, there was, or maybe it was this side of the lake, and my computer is overly zooming. But anyway, if there's a cluster of complaints in a neighborhood, compliance will let me know, and we can do targeted communications there using direct mail, U.S. Post Office's every door direct mail type response. We can pull up addresses for a specific neighborhood and do our own direct mail if it's a smaller community, and actively work with any neighborhood associations or homeowners associations that we can identify for those communities as well. So it's not just sending Robert and his black hat crew out there to be the enforcers. They are also educators, and we work together to change behavior, like I said, through education as much as possible.
I should, as I was mentioning, the ban within the city limits has been in effect, almost 30 years at this point. We do continue to get new people coming into the area. And yes, we are still responding to burns in those areas. They do take time and energy. The Thurston County residential burn permit, and I don't know if you had that one handy or not, Dan. But
before you move, can I just ask a quick question before you move? Sorry, Robert.
Sure.
The number of items on that previous map for each of the 3 years since 2018 has gone up like 60%. Can you kind of help us couch whether that's the calls or the NOVs or a condition of people being at home this past year that elevated those numbers?
I can't speak to percentages. I can tell you that yes, we had definitely an increase in outdoor burn complaints this past calendar year. And yes, I believe it's due to COVID. It has made responses a little more difficult. But at the same time, yes, we are still trying to meet with folks one-to-one outside to, again, deal with the behaviors. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 900 complaints last year, which is higher than normal. It's not outrageous, but it is higher than normal. So I think that's where some of them have come from.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I just was seeing the number of complaints going from 240 to 504 over 3 years. So thank you for that.
And I think people are more sensitive and worried, obviously, because with smoke, if you have any lung conditions, they can be exacerbated with smoke, and people are concerned, obviously, about getting ill. So I absolutely think that's part of it. And then when we had the wildfires this summer, people were also calling and complaining about just smoke.
That's what I was wondering, is wildfires too.
Definitely the working at home, being in your home neighborhood has driven a number of calls up. I mean, it's much easier to see and be concerned with smoke in your neighborhood if you're in the neighborhood 24/7 for 12 months.
Perhaps, and I guess I should clarify too for the board, that these complaints range from an illegal campfire within the city limits to people further out, generally burning RVs, burning their household garbage. A few mobile homes in the past year went up in flames. So each complaint exists as a number, but the severity of those is a very wide view of life. So, and yes, the more severe ones definitely got notice of violation. So that was part of that. The homeless aspect has been something we've been dealing with as well. It's increased too in the past year. So we've got some cooperation with Department of Transportation. I don't know if Dan, you can grab that picture or not, but
Yeah, I was looking for that. I had it and then it disappeared on me. So
okay. So we've provided signs to Department of Transportation that we've had historically for posting in the urban areas to restrict the or inform and educate people. And they have actually posted them near some of the homeless camps that are on DOT property. So that is also, I think we're seeing some help from that as well. I did mention the Thurston County residential burn permits. So that is a program that we've implemented multiple years ago. It's electronic now. The advantage to the compliance team is if we get a complaint in this neighborhood, we can go see what permits we have in that neighborhood, and we can call some of those people because we have their contact information. And that allows us much faster response rather than having to drive out there to the site. So it is something that is working very well for us. We're still reaching out to society, getting more and more people permitted, I think, each year. So that is continuing. What have we got there, Dan? I can't tell.
So this is the map of the Thurston County burn permits for this year. You can see we map them. We have the city and UGA maps here. You can see the Lacey UGA right on the edge here. We have burn permits that are right on the edge. If somebody submits an application and it's within a prohibited area, they get an email back from us saying your permit application is invalid. Don't burn here. You're liable to be fined if you're burning illegally. And then we map those. So again, compliance can see that. If they get a complaint off of Patterson Lake that somebody's burning, we know one person that at least showed an interest in burning there. So we have a complaint response starting point. Same with, for instance, this I was showing you, this is actually my new neighborhood. And some of my neighbors with burn permits, and I filled in our application just to see myself, so you can see if, and this map is only for internal use. We don't publish this, so compliance staff can use it. And if there's a complaint in this neighborhood, they can look and say, well, let's call Dan. Here's his address, phone number, email address, and see if he's burning. We've got complaints saying there is burning on his block. So let's see if that permit holder has an issue or is actually actively burning today. So.
And this system has worked well, especially this year because of COVID and trying to protect staff. And so, and again, going along with our philosophy of educating first to try to change behavior. If we can make a phone call and stop the behavior, that's our goal. Issuing the notice of violation is, unless it's really egregious, is really, we try to not do that, especially if we can stop it on the first call. And sometimes we're coming up against neighbor to neighbor issues where they're just mad at each other, and we get phone calls over and over again about burning as a result of that too. So that's just typical human nature. But you can see we have a lot of burn applications this year.
So we have about 2,000 active burn permits in Thurston County. Only 21 of those were submitted as invalid applications, which is a much better rate than previous years. So hopefully that means people are learning more about the UGA burning, or at least the people that are trying to follow the rules are learning that. But again, the complaints you can see are showing that there's still a lot of education work to be done there.
Dan or Robert, remind us that they get a permit for the whole season or for each episode?
For the season. So the permit is valid during the burn season, which is October 1 through July 14th.
That's for residential burning. For land clearing, it's different. And there's
land clearing is a 30-day permit, I believe.
Yes,
Right.
30 days.
And there's a fee that goes along with that too.
And so we actually also map the land clearing, active land clearing permits. I haven't updated this week yet. But you can see this is again a compliance tool. It's not for public generation, but we do share this with the fire districts throughout our jurisdiction. So you can see the active burn permits, land clearing burn permits for the last week of January, first week of February. And then we actually map the different fire districts too, so we can see where they're occurring, and if we get complaints, we can call that or Robert's team can call that fire district and say, you have a permit out there. Is that, do you know if they're burning today or whatever they need to do? So.
And this actually is very helpful because of DNR and the silvicultural burning and their ability now to burn in UGAs. So having our system mapped is really important, and again, helping us coordinate with DNR when we get complaints about burning that's clearly not in our jurisdiction.
And just getting into the nuts and bolts a little bit more, this map you're seeing now, excuse me, shows up on the Thurston County residential burn permit application page, so that if people want to see if they're in an area they can burn, all they have to do is go up to the bar, type in their address, and when the little pin comes up, they can click on the shaded area, and it explains exactly what the restrictions are, if any, and what they need to do to stay legal. So unincorporated areas, yeah, they can have a recreational fire. Yes, they can have a residential burn, but they need a permit, and the link to the permit there. City of Tumwater, no solid fuel fires. Same with Lacey and Olympia. If they get into the UGAs, then it explains recreational fires are allowed, but no yard waste burning is allowed. So again, trying to make it easy for people to get information and get good, valid information in their hands in any means possible, digitally, as well as sending out paper, talking face-to-face, meeting with groups. So.
I believe that is what we have for you. Do we have questions?
So,
Go ahead.
people could just go on the website and kind of click on it to make sure that they could burn where their address is, or vice versa, but they would not have access to some of the internal data. Is that correct? Just
correct. So all of that information with phone numbers and
Oh, did he freeze up?
I think you just
shared
locked
publicly.
up. There we go. You're back.
So if you want to go into, so that's what the web page looks like. Oh.
Okay.
And so that's first thing you see on the burn permit application is the map, the explanation of how to use it to make sure they're in a valid area, all of the restrictions, and some alternatives if they can, again, trying to encourage people to burn, but then their permit application, and then below all the terms and conditions of that permit. And when they fill that out, they get an automatic email back saying, this is your permit. Here's all of these terms and conditions at the bottom of the page are included in that automated email back to them. And then, like I said, we check those, and if we find them to be within the no burn areas, we turn around and email them back saying your permit was invalid.
Okay. Nice.
I have a couple of questions then, unless, is anyone else I'm missing trying to get in? So can you, Robert, for the benefit of the new members, can you talk about why or Dan, why we're talking about Thurston County by itself in this context?
I would answer that as it is the most populous county. We get the most complaints from this county. I think the further out you go, north or west, the acceptance of outdoor burning is higher than it is here in Thurston County. So there's some philosophical differences. There's also some practical differences in, it's been many years, decades at this point, I think, since Thurston County fire districts, DNR, the county fire marshal, ORCA, and for some reason, I think there's some other entities involved as well. They got together to craft a burn permit program for the county. So rather than each fire district going it alone, they got together and said, this is what we want to do. And it has changed over the years a little bit. Used to be all paper versions handed out at fire districts. Money got scarce to print all those up. So that's actually when ORCA, Dan did the underneath work to create this electronic format. So I think that's really the history of how we got where we are in Thurston County.
Thank you. That's helpful. And I'll add just one piece to that. When we had this conversation maybe 4 or 5 years ago, the conversation was about, starting this burn, this coordinated burn permit process through ORCA. And then there was sort of a longer term conversation around, whether we should be charging a fee to help us with education in this area. And then as well, looking at our asthma data as a county compared to our population as a county, we seem to have some higher health implications that, may or may not be tied to air quality, just to be, totally, scientific in that. So the other question I have is, remind us about other air agencies and to what extent they're charging for burn permits or doing county level programs like this.
I believe the only agency that is charging for residential burn permits is the Yakima Clean Air District, which is specific to Yakima County off reservation. And they, if I recall again, I think it's $75 for their annual permit there. You have different approaches in different areas. If you go over to Spokane County, the air district there, I don't believe they charge for permits, but they have greatly restricted the number of days burning is available. Again, you're talking different philosophies. They have high fire danger. So on the west side, I don't think there's anything, I don't think any of them are charging for residential burn permits. I can tell you in Puget Sound jurisdiction, which is Kitsap, King, Pierce, and Snohomish counties, they have not invested heavily in residential burning. They have agreements with the local fire districts to handle it. So there's as many districts as there are, there's different approaches to the issue.
Okay, that's really helpful. Yeah, it's a funny spot where we're kind of on the cutting edge actually with this countywide program. So I guess I just want to throw out, for me, this entire conversation is about both trying to look at whether we can fund some more education and looking at whether long-term we need to be having more coordination throughout our region, and B, considering if there's a point where we no longer allow outdoor burning in any parts of our region. And personally, I would love it if the board would ask the staff to bring us a plan or some feasibility around that entire conversation. But particularly, I'm interested if the board would be open to exploring a fee for these permits in Thurston County in our budget that's coming up to start July 1. $5 for the season or $20 for the season would give us a little bit of cash to enhance our education program to hopefully help keep bringing down those numbers. So that's just some thoughts of where I'm coming from after a decade of this conversation. And I know we're not all in the same place, so I don't think there's any pressure or speed necessary. And definitely we want to make sure we have an open and frank conversation with Thurston County Public Health, the Board of Health, before we would move forward with any actions. But I'll just drop that on the table and see what people think.
A response a little bit. My mask gets away. The fee. So when we get violations, that money goes back into that fines goes for public education. So the money that we get for that and for other kinds of violations goes into a pot, and that that's how we fund our public education. That's one part of it. The other piece you have to think about is right now, by what Dan has developed, having everything done electronically, that saves us huge amounts of money. And so when we have to start accepting money, that costs more. I mean, $5 in no way would pay for what it would cost us to have a fee. So if we were ultimately going to have a fee, the fee would have to be higher to cover our costs. That's just part of it. I think ultimately we'd love to change behaviors and not have burning in Thurston County. I think it's a progressive kind of process. And again, Dan, we try to provide education. We try to do outreach. We try to look for alternatives. Dan and I in the past have met with LeMay and folks that do yard waste pickup. They no longer have a limit on how many you need to have like in your neighborhood to get yard waste pickup. So they're more than willing to work with us or the neighborhoods, and there are, I think, 2 different providers in Thurston County. So long term, that would be terrific, but we have to think about the costs, versus. And the other thing is, you remember when we had the meeting a number of years ago, people came. We had a huge meeting, and people's comments to us were, we're getting permits, we're doing it right. Why don't you go after the people that are doing it wrong? And so we've been trying to do that, as you can see from the information, and so. Obviously, we'd need to be working with them. If once we got Thurston County, if they were interested, we'd have to go back to the community and have a huge discussion, because I think just sort of putting it out as part of our budget would create a huge uproar. So it's not something that's, it's something that I'd like to have eventually. We're trying to work at it sort of in steps. The other thing that I would love to have ultimately, but it's difficult with a region as large as ours, is to have all of the counties and part of our electronic system, and we're very thankful to the fire districts that are out in our other, in Thurston plus in the other 5 counties. But that's an undertaking that would also be really important. I think ultimately is to have everybody on an electronic system, just for everybody's information and for good health and being proactive. So those are just sort of my comments.
Well, the only thing I'll respond to that, because I want to hear from the board, is I think the timing is good now to make a plan and figure out when the right time to have those conversations is. So other board members.
Mr. Chair, I realize this is out of order. Could I make a comment?
Dale, I'm going to wait because I need to hear from my board, and I will, if the board's okay with it, I'll come back around after we've had a little bit of discussion. And hear from you.
Yeah, this is Bill Peach. Just a quick comment, and then I would like to hear from the public. An approach that we take in Clallam County to inappropriate behavior, specifically abandoned cars and dumping, is to work with local agencies. In our case, it's volunteer agencies, the Lions Club, that can provide some free labor, and we actually have money in an account that takes care of disposing of the material properly at a dump. So just a thought, are we promoting that process in our advertising campaign? Sorry if you already do. I'm a rookie. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Quick answer for Bill's question, Robert.
We do certainly work cooperatively with some of your employees specifically, but on some of these problem sites, we do find environmental health and outdoor burning rules tend to get mixed together at times. So it does make a good partnership between agencies. We do not actually have, Orca does not provide funding for these cleanups. So some of that, yes, we hope to get the counties involved and deal with them that way.
And I will note, excuse me, on specifically on residential outdoor burning, we have worked with other government agencies and volunteer groups on a case-by-case basis. Especially, I'm thinking of, I think it's Pacific Beach or Ocean Beach out on the Long Beach Peninsula. Several years back, we had some storm debris they wanted to dispose of. We got local haulers to have dumpsters for yard waste, and I think out there the local Boy Scout troop provided some transportation to haul from yards to the dumpsters in the community. So it's not something we do on a regular basis, but we have done it more frequently. We work closely with other government agencies on education and information campaigns. And I found the picture Robert referenced earlier. We did provide signs to the Washington Department of Transportation to put up around some of the homeless encampments along I-5, noting the illegal burning, or that burning is prohibited in those areas. So we have, I think, at least a dozen signs. I think it was 18 signs in the hands of DOT to put around those encampments and try to change behavior again through education, because those are especially problematic burn sites that trying to track down the violators in those type of situations is difficult. So,
okay, Greg, oh, can you pull the picture down, Dan? It's just easier for me to facilitate the conversation. Greg, go ahead.
Sure. Just,
Yeah.
you know, I think I'm stricken by Fran's comments, and I really do think as we move forward, of course, Jefferson County is a very rural area, and we're a long way away from banning fires, residential fires, or land clearing, or the larger residential fires. But I think using technology to move this forward is absolutely the way to do it. And as we regionalize any of our efforts, I think that's the way. And I guess I take her point about a $5 permit fee costs more to administrate than it does to capture. So I think looking to leverage our staff capacity with online processing of these more simple over-the-counter applications is definitely in our best interest, and I really appreciated that.
Thanks, Greg. Others? Cynthia?
I agree with Fran, when you just try to do smaller amounts for permits, but we might look at our fines to raise it more, because maybe that would have more of an impact than trying to do it up front.
Right. Well, you don't get the people avoiding the system because of the money in that scenario. It's a good comment. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts right now? Okay. So anyone, everybody okay if I give Dale a minute?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner?
Yeah, just very briefly, the issue, and I've been involved in this one way or the other in a couple of fire districts since back in actually 2000. The issue that has come up with the fire districts as far as the permits and permit charges is not a philosophical difference as far as the burning. It is that the funds being raised for education and so forth, as is shown by the map that was displayed sooner, the problem exists primarily in the areas where burning is already banned, not in the rural fire districts. So charging burn, our issue from the commissioner's standpoint in the past has been charging the people in rural residential areas for their permits for them to burn, and then taking that money, and that money is not being used to support the rural fire districts or permits. It's used to, in fact, cover enforcement in the cities where burning is already banned. And that's what I believe the chart shows. That has been the issues in the past. Any numbers that are developed, I think it's great to go forward with it. but any information developed by staff, I would hope would take into account where the funds would be obtained versus where the funds would be spent. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. That's helpful context. Okay, so I think it sounds like there might be a little bit of a tendency to look at what it would take for Orca to expand the electronic system. Maybe one county at a time, maybe across the region, but that's for, I think, for our staff who are the experts to kind of wrap their brain around and think about what the path might look like. And then any conversation around revenue to reinforce the work that we're doing here in the context of the comments that have been made around, rural paying, rural not paying for city problems, which totally makes sense to me. And then, kind of the differences in our regions, as you really drill down into the different counties and the population. So is everybody okay with that general direction? And we'll see what staff come up with in the coming months. Okay, Fran, is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I don't do the squeaky wheel thing on outdoor burning, but every few years, I think it's really important that we talk about it. And, the context for me in Thurston County, we now have, a climate mitigation plan. We have, a county and 3 cities that have adopted the plan. 2 of those cities and the county have declared a climate emergency. People are hiring staff. And I think the reality is that at least our communities largely think that anyone who pollutes needs to pay, even if it's just a residential burn. So I do think that the distinction is that difference in how we think a little bit from place to place across the region. And it's really important that we acknowledge that in the context of Orca and don't make this driven by the most populated county. So I just want to park that. Greg?
Yeah, just to add on to what you said last, my own family is participating in the Taming Bigfoot challenge right now to track our own carbon. And I've stopped taking wood-fired saunas for the month that we're in competition because of the high carbon footprint that any burning of wood has. And I think just something to consider for staff moving forward in outreach and education, especially when you're comparing compost to a residential burn, is the carbon footprint of an outdoor burn. And I think including how many pounds of carbon you're releasing into the atmosphere with a 3x3 foot burn would be illustrative to a lot of people that probably aren't really seeing that.
Nice, cool. So I just want to welcome Commissioner Mejia. Hello, Carolina. Thank you for joining. We knew you had something come up.
Yes.
We just spent an hour talking about outdoor burning in Thurston County. And so if that wasn't part of your orientation, I'm gonna ask if Robert or Dan can catch you up offline.
Awesome, great, thank you. I do apologize. We had an executive session that went over today.
For sure, those things happen. We get it. Appreciate you being here. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to the compliance update from Robert.
So you'll see that the list in front of you there under the compliance tab is a little lighter than usual. I think some of that's seasonal as well as driven by some really poor weather in January. It's tough to want to go to a gas station and bend over a pipe out in the middle of the parking lot when it's dumping rain. So the other activities that you can see there, yes, we're still doing lots of permits for asbestos and demo. Seems to be picking up earlier this year than normal. Land clearing burns, I have a feeling that you're going to start seeing a surge in those as the weather dries out here a little bit. COVID does not seem to have slowed down the new construction much. So there's a lot of people that are still wanting to build their dream home or their new garage or whatever it happens to be. I have nothing specific for you this morning, and probably in the interest of time, I'll just ask for any questions. Greg?
Yeah, I'm just curious. I see that we have a master planned resort that's going in Brennan in Jefferson County. And I see, it looks like both of the burn permits for Jefferson County were related to that development that's just getting going. And I'm wondering, is there a way that I can look at the capacity, the scope of each of these burn permits, just to, as I keep myself educated on this?
There is nothing that's online that you can see. More than happy to send that up to you. No, there's no external way to see it, what they're doing. Black Point has been putting in permits almost monthly. They're a 30-day permit. They've been putting in almost monthly for the last year. And so they're doing small burn, well, in land clearing terms, they're doing relatively small burns. And we're still talking 20-foot piles of debris that's being burned at those locations.
Great, thanks. And if it's convenient to just, if in a public record to send those on, I'd love to just kind of keep abreast of their progress.
We'll do that.
Thank you.
Greg, did you want both of those? You want both of them?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you, Robert. So we'll go to Mark for the engineering report.
Okay, good morning. I'm Mark Gooden, and I'm one of the permit writers / engineers for the agency. I'm going to go over the commercial and industrial permits that we're working on right now, the permits that are in process right now. And I believe it's tab 5 on your board materials. It's summarized in a spreadsheet, blue and gray. And so I'm just going to go over some basics first for our new board members. This list here covers 2 basic types of permits. One, notice of construction permits, and those are permits that are required for any new industrial or commercial source of air pollution, like a new lumber mill, a new gas station, a new auto body spray booth, a new emergency generator at a hospital, to name a few. And those are permits that are required prior to commencing construction. So if the project proponent breaks ground and starts the construction, that is a violation. And we do process a few violations a year for projects that started without first getting our approval. The second type of permit that you'll see on this list is called an air operating permit. And those are permits for existing facilities that emit large quantities of air pollution. And we're talking like in the hundreds of tons of air pollution. And Orca has 10 of those facilities right now. They'll show up on the list as with either the acronym AOP or RFC. RFC stands for Reopening for Cause. But there's 2 general categories of permits: the construction permits, which a facility needs upfront before they break ground and start constructing anything new or installing anything new. And the second type, the air operating permit, which is a 5-year renewable operating permit. And those are for the very large facilities. So our list today reflects a typical spectrum of different types of industries that we deal with on a monthly basis. There's 7 air operating permits that are in the permit pipeline, so to speak, that we're working on. Some of those are renewals. Some of those are reopenings to work in new federal regulations or new equipment that they have received their construction permits to construct. So they need to be worked into the permits as well. And as I said before, we have 10 major facilities that have these air operating permits. They all have existing air operating permits, and you see that 7 of them are in various stages of being renewed or revised. The construction permits run the full gamut between wood products industries to gasoline stations and automotive industries. So what you see on the list is pretty typical. The time frame, real quickly, we're for a notice of construction permit, we're looking at anywhere from a month to 3 months to review and approve those. Some of them do go to public notice and comment, and those will take much longer. The air operating permits are many pages and fairly complicated, and so the lead time to processing those applications is in terms of months, a year to 18 months, typically when we could get working on them. So as far as noteworthy cases that are on the list right now, I'm just going to bring up one, and that's Sierra Pacific Industries. And we mentioned this one last time, but we actually, they finally paid their permit fees, and that permit got out the door. And that's Sierra Pacific Industries in Aberdeen, and this was a permit to replace all of their lumber dry kilns. And so, as always, if you see something on this list that strikes your interest and you want to know more about, I've got plenty of details. And also want to mention that Dan Nelson does a super good job at getting information on our website. If you go to our website and click permits and registration up on the very top menu bar, you could scroll down and you could pull up one of these air operating permits, and they all have a technical support document. You could learn about the source, you can see what's in the permit. And then for the notice of construction permits, if you click under public resources and go to news and info, any pending construction permits that are up for public notice and comment show up in that menu. So I just wanted to point out that that's always available to you from our website to find out more about any pending notice of construction permits or any air operating permits of our 10 major sources. So with that, I'll open it up to questions and end it there. Thanks.
Questions for Mark? Okay, thank you, Mark. Now we'll go to Odell for the air quality update.
Hi, sorry, I should have been ready.
Did you find coffee? Because I need some too.
So share screen, this one. All right, so can you all see that? Okay.
Yes.
So the January air quality summary is not terribly interesting. We're, as I showed you in the plot last month, we're seeing a decline in the higher PM2.5 levels that we used to see every winter. And so this January is no exception, but we all know that it's been a pretty warm and windy January. So we've had a couple of days just creep into the moderate. I mean, just barely. In Thurston County here in Lacey and in Port Angeles, we had 3 of those days, but the highest one was only at 14.9. So I mean, that's just barely into the moderate from good. And same in Shelton, we had 2. So not 100% data. We had some power losses from those windstorms and some communication failures. both at Chickapee and in Lacey. So we lost a couple days of data there, but nothing too serious. And we weren't having bad air quality. So it wasn't it didn't impact our community much. So other monitoring news. So there have been a couple visits to Chickapee, which are always fun during the winter, but they were good days, nice days, just routine maintenance, fix some communication issues. Been completing our site visits more on schedule than earlier this year. So Aberdeen and Shelton were completed last month. And I spent some time planning our February Northwest AirQuest meeting. That's where air quality monitoring specialists from EPA and the state agencies in Idaho, Oregon, and Washington, and all the locals get together and just talk about and present different studies that they are working on that are of interest to air quality. So that was a good meeting, it went well. And then based on some questions I got from the board members last month, I did start the data analysis for the wood stove program efficacy. So the question I believe was from Greg about if we can show that our policies have led to that decline in wintertime PM 2.5 values. So I've been working on the data, talking to Robert and Dan, they're like, yep, that's what we've done, but I'd like to see that in the data. So I'm working on that. I don't have that completed yet to show. I switched over. Bill Peach asked about wildfire effects on local air quality. So I do have that data to show, and I'm going to move into that now. So these are numbers that I used Thurston County, and I looked at a few of our other counties, and they're very similar. Some of our counties that typically have better air quality will probably see a higher impact from wildfire smoke than Thurston County would. So for example, Pacific County typically has very, very good air quality, so that when the wildfire smoke comes in, that would account for a higher percentage. But basically what we saw, this is for the last 4 years, we did not have any major wildfires in 2019. So I only looked at 2017, 2018, and 2020. So in 2017, there were 10 days of wildfire impacts on our air monitor, and that accounted for 13 to 15% of the annual PM 2.5 exposure. So basically, I just summed all of the PM 2.5 that a person would have breathed in during the year. And of all of that, 13 to 15% of it was from these 10 days in August and September. In 2018, it was 23 to 25% of the PM 2.5 exposure was from 9 days where we had wildfire smoke. So this is pretty significant. I mean, this is for the whole year. You got 25% of your PM 2.5 exposure in these 9 days. And in 2020, our favorite year ever, there were 12 days, and that accounted for 38 to 40% of our entire PM 2.5 exposure for the year. So how do I evaluate where the smoke is coming from? So that's wildfire. And so you'll see in 2017, over 90% of that was from was from British Columbia, sorry. And then September 5th and 6th, we had Washington, British Columbia were the source of surface smoke, and then California and Oregon were the source of upper level smoke. And I'm going to show you that in a minute, which is pretty cool. In 2018, a lot of the smoke was from British Columbia, and then there was some input from wildfires in Washington. Oops. And then in last year, for September 7th and 9th, when we saw our first wildfire smoke come in, that was almost entirely from Washington fires. And then for the next 8 days, over 90% of that was coming in from Oregon and California, and only about 10% from Washington wildfires. So I will quickly show you how we look at that. So here is a satellite image from August 2nd. Actually, I think this is August 3rd. And then I can calculate the frequency of air back trajectories. So basically, from the August 2nd to the 6th, every 3 hours, I calculate a new trajectory. And this just shows the frequency of distribution where those trajectories would have passed through a grid cell. So it just kind of gives you an idea that almost all of our surface air was coming from the north and coming down from these fires up here in British Columbia. We didn't have a lot of fires or any really in Washington state that year. I think this was our big one right over here by Twist. So this is the 2017 September 5th and 6th, which I thought was really interesting. So here's the satellite image from September, I think midday on September 5th. And you just see a lot of smoke, and the red dots are where all the fires are. And so this is Washington up here, Oregon, and then Northern California. And so I calculated the first air mass back trajectory, and this is for surface air. So where was the air that we were breathing at the surface coming from? And you can see that was coming down here from the north, from British Columbia, and some input from around this area. And then I calculated the back trajectories just a little bit higher up in the atmosphere at 500 meters. And that was all coming from this big fire right here. So this was all Washington fire. And you can see a lot of the smoke that we would see in the atmosphere was actually coming in from fires and even as far away as Montana and Idaho. But I think this was the Jolly Mountain fire. And I think that was our biggest input here in Thurston County. And then I calculated the back trajectory at 2,000 meters. So we would have seen that smoke. And all of that smoke was coming in from Oregon and Northern California, as you can see from these back trajectories. So when you look at the satellite image without doing these back trajectories by level, it's hard to really tell where the smoke that we're breathing is coming from. And it can be coming from all over. So that's just a cool example of how you can see smoke from really everywhere. This is the August 13th through 15th in 2018. So again, you can see that was coming down from British Columbia. These are the big source of the fires up here in British Columbia, and there were a few here in Washington. So this was where I got, mostly coming from British Columbia with a little input here from our Washington fires that were coming over as well. And you can see that in these trajectories. And then this is our little movie that I'm going to go through for 2020, which I already showed you. So I have this coming up. Just give it a second. Come on, internet. There you go. So this is starting on September 26th. And as you can see, there were no fires really in British Columbia at all. Not really any here in Washington. We had this little one here. And this is on Sunday or maybe Saturday night. We had this fire down here in Oregon, but a lot down in California that we were looking at. Click through to September 7th, and you can suddenly see between September 6th and 7th, all these fires in Western Washington Eastern Washington just blew up. And Dan and I, this was Labor Day weekend. So Dan and I were keeping an eye and talking to each other because we knew that the winds that were predominantly westerly were going to switch to easterly. And we were really concerned about smoke from these Washington fires coming over and impacting our sites. So that was on September 7th. But what ended up happening was the winds did switch, and you can see that here clearly. We can zoom in a little bit. This fire popped up, but you don't see a lot of smoke coming from these Eastern Washington fires. And that's largely because when the wind switched, it blew the fires back over areas that are already burnt and effectively helped control those fires and reduce the smoke. So this is the Cougar Mountain fire down here, and then you just see these fires in Northern California and Oregon blow up. But we are starting to see on the 7th and the 8th, you can't really see it in the satellite picture compared to this, but we did see a bunch of smoke that was already over in Eastern Washington come over and start to drive our values up. So that was all of our Washington wildfire smoke that came in on the 7th and the 8th and the 9th. And then kind of cleaned out for a couple of hours. And then on the 10th, suddenly this huge pile of smoke that was all going out to the Pacific. So you start to see it creep up. And this is where we really hit hard with the smoke. And that was all of these Oregon and California fires coming up. And suddenly, and the Washington fires were pretty much gone. You still see a few little red dots, but not much. And this was all then just going through. We had this huge reservoir of smoke out here in the Pacific, so it really just didn't matter which way the winds were blowing. We were going to get it no matter what. And now you see the westerlies reassert, which is our more common wind direction, and they just blew all that smoke from the Pacific back out over here. So I thought that was kind of an interesting little story to show you after the fact. And you'll remember they kept talking about these storm systems that were going to come in and clean us out. And we were all so hopeful for rain and storms, but the smoke actually helped dissipate the clouds and prevent the rain from coming in. And it just kept lingering. And so this was that storm system we were so hopeful for several days. And then finally it moved through on the 18th. And that's when our air cleared out and pushed all the smoke. So that is the story of 2020. And I think that is all I've got for you. So that is my explanation for wildfire impacts on air quality for the last 3 years. So any questions?
That was cool.
Bill?
Thank you.
No, Odell, this is Bill Peach.
Hi.
That was fantastic. I thank you very much for your research.
Yeah, totally agree. Thanks for asking the question, Bill. And then I would be curious if someone could snip that portion out of the meeting for us to share around that report with our jurisdictions.
I would love that.
So which part?
Just the part, like take the video of you talking and presenting out of the
I
Zoom
can do
meeting
that.
and give us a standalone clip.
Oh, thanks,
I
Dan.
will do that, Jim.
Okay, thank you. It's very good. Anything else for Odell?
Question, just a question, Jim. Do you want that sent? Dan will do the clip and send it to the entire board.
Yeah, or put it on the website and send us the link, whatever's the easiest for people to watch it. If I don't know if we have a YouTube channel or what. So
I will put it on our YouTube channel and
Cool.
send the link out.
Awesome. Thank you.
In fact,
Okay.
I'll build a media piece around it and send it out to all of our email list.
Yeah, that's good. I think there's some good information there. So it's good. Next time we'll tell Odell she's gonna go prime time after the presentation though.
Thanks.
Odell, get used to it. You're good. Thank you.
You are, yeah, for sure.
I'll
Okay,
just
so that
make sure I put a cat filter over before I post it.
Dan, that would be, or just, yeah, some little ears and whiskers. That would be great.
Yeah.
right on. Well, that takes us to Dan for public education and outreach.
Guys, before I go, I just gotta, do you need me for anything more? Can I leave and still keep your quorum?
We're good. We're good on the quorum, Randy. Take care. Thanks for doing it.
Bye.
Okay, Dan.
Okay, so I will note that despite all the literal headaches of that wildfire smoke, it was pretty cool to have calls every few days with NASA to talk about some of this data. So getting a Zoom meeting with NASA folks and seeing some of the behind the scenes stuff of their satellite centers is pretty cool. Moving on, covered a lot of what I do in outdoor burning. Robert did point out one interesting factoid that it's worth sharing is, according to Ecology's annual emissions report, outdoor burning in Thurston County is responsible for just 6% of the annual PM 2.5 emissions in the county. Automobiles and wood stoves are the big contributors, and I'm guessing wildfire smokes as well, but outdoor burning does have an impact. Like I said, 6% is the annual PM 2.5 emission rate there. So a lot of outdoor burning work. I included in the board packet one of the most recent newsletters we did. I think people tend to learn from experiences and from examples. So I literally shared my own example of yard waste cleanup and deciding what to do with a very large pile of woody debris from trimming a small orchard at our new place. I had 6 fruit trees done and I trimmed down, ended up loading it in a trailer and hauling it to the Hawks Prairie composting facility. Cost $12 to get rid of over 600 pounds of woody debris. And so we shared that in a newsletter and on our social media. had some really good responses. Some people really loved it. Others liked it, but said, you know, that's not an option for everybody. That the cost of $12 is affordable, but renting a truck or a trailer and other things. So some good discussions around that. We did have a couple fire districts responded, say, can we share this and put it in our own newsletter? So that's just an example of some of the type of outreach and education we do. So I wanted to make sure you guys saw that if you're not on our email alert system. On the wood stove side of things, our wood smoke reduction grant is, I've got all of the funds allocated with pre-approvals. We haven't expended all those, but we're trying to get those projects wrapped up. I will note, had a really great meeting with Lynn a week or so back where we talked about the future of the program during the next budget cycle. We want to streamline it, make it even more efficient and more responsive to the public. Lynn provided some great insights and some suggestions for moving that program forward. So excited to get the grant data from Ecology and get that written up. I think I mentioned at the last meeting, the governor's budget does include a similar level of investment in the wood smoke reduction grant. So hopefully the legislature will pass that through and we'll see that program fully funded, if not having a little extra funding, since we're looking to expand it statewide and cover all of our jurisdiction instead of just the hotspot areas in the urban cores. Other than that, like I said, a lot of back-end website stuff, and thank you, Mark, for the shout out on the website. We do try to make as much information available to the public as possible through our website. Mark was able to find what he needs. I will note on the tabs about 2/3 of the way down the homepage, if you click on public records, you'll find all of those AOP permits, linked to those, all of our registered sources, so you can see where every single registered business is located on a map. All of our notices of construction are there. If you click on that, you can see any that are open for comment. All of your board meetings minutes, all of our finance committee minutes, all of our annual budgets, as well as some historic records, all of our notices of violation that we've issued and resolved over the past 8 years, all of our asbestos permits that we've received over the past 8 years. So you can see a lot of data on our website, and I encourage everybody to sort through that and see if there's something missing or if there's any questions you have about the agency. Hopefully you can find the information to resolve your question online. And I will note, during this COVID year, we've seen a strong uptick in use of that site, both for on the permitting side and just in general informational resources being used. So.
Nice. Thank you, Dan. Questions for Dan? Okay. Appreciate that information getting out. It is easy to find things on our website. It's very cool. Okay, Lynn with Finance and Administration.
Hello, got to unmute myself. Good morning, all. Nice to see y'all. I must make a special comment to Jill's background, the waving palm trees and the ocean surf. Anyhow, okay, back to work. So a couple items. Our state auditor's audit has officially started this week. Fran and myself, we had a pre-conference with SAO last week, and they are still in the planning stages to determine what areas they'll be focused on. So we're hoping to find out what those areas they'll be focusing on, because they typically alternate every couple of years. And the fiscal year 2022 budget. Wow, fiscal year 2022. We are actually starting that process. We initiated that yesterday with the call for all of our department managers to submit their department budgets. And just a brief lineup of what the important dates that we're all keeping in mind is that the managers will be meeting in March to review the department budgets. And we'll meet during the course of the month to fine tune the budgets and the overall budget, where we'll bring forward to the Finance Committee a draft budget at the April 14th Finance Committee meeting. Following that, in May, we will provide a proposed budget to the Board of Directors on May 12th. And if not approved, then we'll use the June 9th board meeting as the official date to approve the budget. And this past fiscal year, the board actually approved our fiscal year 2021 budget in May. And for those who don't know, we have to have an approved budget by the third week in June in order to operate and function with an approved budget for the following fiscal year. And as of January 31st, 7 months into our fiscal year, we have received 66% of our revenue. Budgeted would be 59%. With an annual budget of 2.5 million, we have collected 1.4 million, close to 1.5 million. And for our expenditures, we've expended 55% with a 59% budgeted percentage. So we've expended 1.4 million as well. So we're on target, and we're meeting our responsibility obligations. And the last thing I wanted to touch on was we didn't have enough time to speak about the solar energy follow-up that Jim Cooper had requested that we just touch base on. I'm going to take just a couple minutes. We've had a number of solar electric analysis done by various contractors out there in 2008, 2011, 2015, July 2019. And recently I spoke to Mason Rolfe, president of the Olympia Community Solar, and this was a referral by Jim Cooper. I'm not sure if you, the city of Olympia, utilize them for projects, or was it through some of your committees? I know that they're working on the Hands-on Children Museum right now, and they're wrapping that community project up. And basically what Olympia Community Solar does, they are a resource for looking to transition electric gas users into solar energy for their office buildings or residential as well. It's my understanding that they have not worked with government sector yet, but they're looking at their options. And he did give me a couple resources for ORCA to follow up on. There are a couple solar installers. And what it amounts to is they look for investors to invest in particular projects to help pay for the cost of the project and installation. And then they reap the benefits in return by a reduction in their power cost. And so we're going to be looking at that down the road when things kind of soften up a little bit with COVID, and seeing if, again, it makes sense for ORCA to look at this option. Again, we have done this on a regular basis, as I mentioned in the dates. But interesting enough, in talking with Mason, he said that it's interesting that technology with the solar energy world, it changes every 2 years. So there's a constant change, and trying to keep up with that. I admire his efforts and what he's doing in our community as well. So anyhow, that's my update there.
Lynn, may I stop you a minute quickly? So is ORCA's roof built so that it can add solar?
We have actually had individual or companies come to our building, and they have actually made some on-site assessments that yes, at this point, now it's possible that additional infrastructure would be needed for the support of the panels, but and it was quite a bit of an investment, the number of times that we've had on-site visits. So, but also the most recent what was it? The most recent, I'm looking up my notes here, sorry, was done by Commercial Building Site Assessment. And we actually received a very positive report card. And what I mean by that is, considering the 10,000 square foot building, 2 stories, occupied by various bodies, considering this, the 6 furnaces, heat pumps, HVAC systems we have, our energy usage, the consideration of occupancy during the building, we're like A minus in terms of cost, efficiency, where we should be and comparative to other similar sized buildings too. So that was a good, I think, good feedback. And that was done in July of 2019.
Cynthia, to answer your question additionally to what Lynn has said is we will be looking at replacing our roof probably in the next 4 years. And so we obviously, when we would do a replacement, we would be looking at making sure that it could withstand the weight of solar too. So yeah, our roof is this, I think, is the original roof on the building, and it was put on in the late 80s. And we've been told we may have 3 to 4 years left of life on this. And I want to replace the roof before it leaks. And as everybody knows, we finished paying the mortgage on this at the end of 2022. And so we've been putting money away for the building, and the hope is that this will be an expensive roof because it's a 2-tiered roof, that we would then, once we have the building paid for, then we can, put some money into the roof replacement at that point. So got my fingers crossed, we'll be good at least for a couple of years.
Well, that's really good timing to look at this project. So I'm actually getting ready to do solar on my house, and the ability to finance the roof with the energy upgrade is pretty significant. Like, you can do a 25-year loan for the energy upgrade and finance the roof and get a 26% tax credit, federal tax credit for the whole thing. Now, I don't know how that will translate to Orca, but it would make a lot of sense to do some bidding along with that roof project, in my opinion. And I'll just throw out there, Lynn, for your notes, Capstone Solar and South Sound Solar are the 2 companies that are super competitive in our region right now.
Right, yeah, South Sound Solar I'm familiar with. And also there's TransAlta Coal Transition Fund that provides matching grants for this, for nonprofits and public entities. So that's an option for us as well.
The thing that made me move is the cost of electricity is going up 5% every year. And the sooner we do a project, the cheaper our electrical use, just from a financial perspective, will be over the long run, not to mention the environmental benefits.
I think we'll start issuing coats at the front door and maybe some hand warmers. No, I was kidding. But yes, yeah, thanks for that, Joe Cooper.
Cool. Anyone else for Lynn? Thank you for that. I really appreciate you bringing that back around.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Fran.
Okay, so as Lynn mentioned, we're beginning the budget process for fiscal 2022. Our budget's been pretty good this year. People are very careful about their expenditures, and we, our sources are doing things, are making improvements. So our budget is actually, let me take this off. Our budget is actually in pretty good shape for fiscal 2021. I'm following legislative issues. There are a number of issues that we're looking at, and with everything being virtual, it's a little easier to some extent to follow some of the legislation that's potentially going through. I'm working with Department of Natural Resources on their smoke management plan. As I mentioned earlier, there was legislation passed a few years ago that allows them to burn in the urban growth areas, and they have to redo their state implementation plan that needs to also be approved by the feds. And so we're involved with that also. We're working with them so that they communicate with us more regularly. Pacific Cascade County in DNR is superb about sending us information when they've got burns that are going. We actually have Olympic region, Puget Sound region, and Pacific Cascade region. So we have 3 of DNR's regions in our region. They're not all as effective communicators as Pacific Cascade is. But we are working with them on their upper level management to work with us, so that when we do get complaints, we can deal with that. And then more importantly, we're getting them to work with us when they're potentially going to have a burn to look at air quality. So I would rather have them be, proactive on the front end than getting the complaints on the back end. But both ways, we're working on communicating with them. And so it's been DNR and EPA and ourselves, the local airs and ecology that are working. Jim, you're muted. You're still muted. He's talking to somebody else. Oh, okay.
Sorry, I'm talking to my kid over my shoulder. My
Okay,
bad.
all right. Sorry, you're muted. Okay. So we had our meeting with our 3 new board members on Monday, and I'm hoping that it was productive. And obviously for all of our board members and our new members, if you have any questions or concerns or issues, please let me know. We want to be very responsive and work with you on a continual basis. We have a wonderful region. It's very diverse. We have urban Thurston County, and then we have more rural areas. We have different kinds of economic development going on in different parts of our region. It's exciting, and our board is so good at looking at things from a diverse perspective. You look beyond your own boundaries, and you look at our entire region. So I thank you for that. And just to let you know, we are looked at from the other air agencies as being a model. Southwest Clean Air Agency, I've got a meeting set up with them tomorrow, I think, to talk about some aspects of what we do in terms of our emissions inventory. A lot of the different regions look to us as a model. So I've got, obviously, I have wonderful staff that are really bright and very productive and on the front end of things. And so they do look to us as a resource, and we do provide that. And I appreciate Odell this year also working with Northwest AirQuest. That's a big piece of her time that she's also willing to do what her entire Orca job plus that. So staff works really hard. They've been doing an excellent job working remotely. And as I continually update folks, we probably won't be back here in the office, I'm guessing, until the summer. We have people come in and out. They have to let us know when they're coming in. We do temperature taking. We want folks to be able to come and go, but we've also got to watch the number of people that are in the office at one time. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions for Fran? Okay, thank you, Fran. Anything for the good of the order? Okay, we have no executive sessions, and so we are adjourned. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Next month.
Yeah.
Stay healthy.
Be safe this weekend.
Yeah.